Hi everyone, it's me, Fancy Jen. This is my tutorial on how to make the Jean Grey or Gambit face surround, crown, headpiece, whatever you want to call it. I'm not quite sure. But I have a pattern for this for sale in my Ko-fi account. I wanted to walk you through and show you how I made it so you can make your own. So first off, I have this wig head. It is a canvas one that I bought off of Amazon. You can get them in different sizes. This one's a 24-inch one, which is the same size as my head circumference. And it's been really helpful because since it's canvas and cork maybe, or there's something in there, you can use a heat gun over this and it won't melt like the styrofoam would. So when I was making my pattern, I had my wig head and I wrapped it in saran wrap and then duct tape. And then I drew onto the duct tape kind of where I thought that this would go. And so it would be about the same shape as my head. Then I cut that all out, and you don't have to do this part because I did it for you. But as you can see, it's about this right shape as my face. So this pattern is going to be my face shape kind of thing, but I didn't then trace this onto paper. So when you get this is the pattern that you'll get from Ko-fi. What you can do here is cut this out and then measure it up to your face, and kind of, you might need to go a little lower or higher around your eyes. If your face is not as long as mine, you might need to trim down this little edge here, but that way you can get it rather close to where you want it to go. And then we'll trace this onto either worbla or to EVA foam. So for this one, I did use worbla. It's a little more expensive, but it's more firm. And I attach it with magnets that are on the back, magnets that are sewed into the temples on my wig. So I can just put it right here. I guess it's more this way up on the sides of my head actually. But you can do that, or you can attach a headband that goes around. So for Gambit, that's what I'm going to be doing, is using a headband that will pull over to attach. When you have your pattern, you just use a scissors, cut around here. This is the little forehead shield that goes like right in the center for Jean Grey. So you don't have to use that part for Gambit. But along the dotted line here, I couldn't fit it all on a standard piece of paper. So what you're going to do is flip it over when you're tracing onto your foam or your worbla and make it one long kind of arched piece where you don't cut at the dotted line. That's where you flip the pattern to repeat left and right. So here we go. I've cut out the pattern, and here's my piece of worbla that I have. It's going to be pretty close, but it is going to fit on here when I flip it, and so that's good. I did want to show you too, another option is to do EVA foam. This is probably the thickness that I would do. It is about 3 or 4 millimeters. This thickness, I think, would be best for being able to hold some shape, but not being too bulky. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually make two. I'll make one with worbla, one with foam, just so it can kind of play with like the different versions. Then if there's one that totally fails, or safe, but if they both turn out good, then I'll put the one up for sale on my Ko-fi. A lot of people use Sharpies and different writing utensils for making foam patterns, tracing them out. I tend to just go with pencil because I have run into where the Sharpie will still be on your edge and it will bleed through your paint. Especially if you are sealing after your paint job. For some reason, the Sharpie will react with certain sealants, I think Mod Podge in particular, and then you have like this beautiful paint job with like weird Sharpie lines come popping out of it out of nowhere at the very end, and it's not fun. But with pencil here, you actually can dig into the foam a little bit, which I find helps with the cutting process. It's a little bit of a guide for your box cutter knife. But I've got that traced out. This is my dotted line. I am going to make a little mark here to kind of help me line that back up when I flip it over. So flipping it over, you probably could do this also for like a Scarlet Witch, very similar to hers, but I'm just going to trace out on the other side now. So here we are, we got the full thing traced out on the EVA foam, and then I got it all traced out on the worbla as well. And now we're going to cutting, and so this can be one of the biggest differences. Some people have, you know, like a hate-love relationship with either material, but with the foam you need to have a box cutter so you can cut it, and that is a whole different skill set to itself. But with the worbla you can use just regular scissors, so that's makes that a little bit easier to work with. The con with the worbla is when we're heat forming this around the wig head later, the worbla is a little harder to control. Black worbla in particular will get kind of stretchy if you overheat it, and then you might start losing your shape. That's one of the things where you really kind of have to pick and choose what is more important to you, or which skill set you feel best about. So first, I'll just cut this out, you know, with scissors. So you can see here, coming out like this, and you're just cutting it out with the regular scissors. Ta-da. And I'll go around and do that. But for the box cutter, this is a different skill set. So if you have thin enough foam, you could technically use scissors if you have a really heavy duty pair of scissors, but since I have my box cutter ready, I do sharpen it. Keeping it sharp is the best way to keep your cuts clean, and then you also don't have to buy a million of these things. So I sharpen it like this, and I won't do that a bunch in case that sounds awful on camera. But then you want to make sure, for this particular thing, I want straight up and down cuts. So I'm going to do what I can to keep my fingers straight and go into the foam straight down and to make my cut completely through all in one go. This foam happens to have a sticky side on the back. It was the only version I had on hand at this thickness. But that might be helpful because I think later I'll stick some felt to the back of my headband. And your forehead gets sweaty under these things, it'd be kind of uncomfortable. So putting a little bit of fabric on the back is kind of helpful. So this will help me stick some lightweight fabric to the back later on. Just in case you want to see more cutting, I'm going straight down. I'm kind of using my pinky over here to help me keep straight. And just guide. The curves are harder, of course. I just go slow, but I don't pick up my blade. So I'm getting to where I'm not going to be able to do this without hitting the camera. So I'm going to move the whole board over my table. That way I don't have to pick up my blade. Definitely want one of these self-healing cutting mats. Unfortunately, they're not really crazy expensive and they last forever. And this is cutting nice and straight. See, there's no like ripped edges. Sometimes when your blade starts getting too dull, you start getting these jagged little tears on here. So that's why you keep sharpening this. Like I've done 2 or 3 cuts now with this, so I'll go back and sharpen this again. You might be able to tell this thing is getting kind of old, but it still works. One of the things you want to do whenever you come to one of these inside corners is you never want to like come down at it this way, because then you might cut into your actual piece. So I'm gonna put my tip of the blade right into there and come outward. And then for this side, it's going to be kind of tricky because I've got two different corners. So I'm going to try and do this where I am getting pretty close. But then I'm going to turn around and come to that corner from the other direction. Try to get it lined up as into that same cut without doing a double cut, which it looks like I got. I did not the most perfect cut, but pretty close. Okay, so I've got both pieces cut out now. Got the worbla and the EVA foam. And now I've moved into my kitchen so that I can use my heat gun. And I know my stovetop here is not going to get harmed by the heat gun. There's probably more professional ways to do this, but I just work in my house, so that's how it goes. I'm going to use my canvas wig head to kind of use as a form for heating my materials, so, and not my actual face. I'm going to start with the foam. With your foam, since I'm going to be painting it, I'm actually going to heat seal the front of the foam. You can't really see it on camera, but when I do heat it up, it closes the pores of the foam and makes it a lot easier for you to paint it without the foam just absorbing all your paint. You can also use other sealants and stuff. There's many different things available out there for that. I'll have to see what I've got downstairs. I think I still have some Plastidip, so that might be what I use on this. So my heat gun goes up to as much as like 900 degrees, but I find that about 400 works out well for foam. I had to look it up at one point. It's not so hot. The foam itself doesn't heat up terribly much, so you don't have to worry a whole ton about that. I try to stay away from actually aiming it at my fingers, but I'm going to try and hold it in a curve, so as it's cooling down, it's going to be holding the shape that I want it to have. So I don't know if it's picking up on camera, but it looks kind of shiny after you heat form it. So that lets you know that the pores are closing up. I'll put that down. Now I'm just going to kind of put it around the wig head. You could use the pins here actually. Stick them through the foam. The paper on the back here is a little annoying with this sticky back foam, but it's working. I'm holding it here, trying to get a good grip on it so that it goes basically around the face and the head of this person. Don't have to hold it here very long. I'm just going to let it cool down a bit. And as you can see, it still kind of holds the shape. And then once we add like the elastic to the back, it'll hold that shape pretty well. So not super hard. If you were to store this in a hot car though, it would probably lose its shape. Well, for either one of them, it would lose the shape. So one thing you can do is take a flat piece of foam and glue it on the back while it's curved, and that can kind of help hold the curved shape as well. So for right now, let's stick it over here on the teapot, and we'll do the worbla next. So this one's going to be a little more difficult. I'm going to stick it to the head already and let the head work as, so you can see it's already starting to shape. This you have to do a little bit more in stages. I think I'm going to use the pins to kind of hold it where I want it. Probably right here, right here. And just work on this place right over the eye real quick. I'm going to try to keep that point in the center. And so it's going to get a little wrinkly here. So let's cool down this. Kind of get it to kind of make the head shape without getting a wrinkle in it. So this is my main pet peeve with worbla, is that I mean, it's a good thing if you're trying to make a very detailed piece and squish it into a mold, but when you're trying to make something more larger and structural, you run into it's a little too wobbly. I'm trying not to get this wrinkle right here happening, but might have to fix that later. Because we forgot to work on getting these like cheek pieces to curve too. I'll just film doing one side so that you don't end up with like a 2-hour video of me just messing with worbla. I think what I'll do is I'll put it here on the side. So gravity helps me a little bit here. And I don't want this to get too heat formed because this person happens to be lacking cheeks. So I don't want this point down here to be super close. I probably, since this is Gambit, don't have to worry too much about the top being a little waffly because his hair is going to be hiding that. So there's that good thing about that. Just holding this here while it cools down. Make sure it keeps that curve. And what I found out when I was doing my jean gray is I was heating this a little too much, and then these points started stretching down the face. And I did have to put it on my face and then trim this down a bit because it had gotten longer. So you can see it's holding this curve around the side of the face pretty good, and then we'll just do the same thing with the other side. Okay, so we've got the worbla version done. And since Gambit's face mask is black, this is essentially done. I'm just going to be gluing some black spandex around the back here because my husband doesn't want to do the full like balaclava. He wants to have a little more breathing room here. So I'm just going to do like a headband around the back that attaches here and around the back. This one, however, will require some sealing and some painting, and then it can attach with magnets. Like if you did do the balaclava, you probably could buy the one that just has a hole for the face off of Amazon and then sew the magnets on here, like kind of the corners, and then attach it right there, maybe even down around here too to make it help it hold the shape a little bit better. But I'll post this. I can make this a jean gray with making it blue, or I could make it Gambit. So I will let you guys decide which one I do, and then I'll put it up on my Ko-fi for sale.